Uh-huh, okay. Great, yum. What's an easy filling weeknight meal I can serve with a sliver of cheese? Betty Crocker's answer, ribbon meatloaf. I'm Melinda and I'm cooking my way through Betty Crocker's 1971 recipe card library. Today we're making a ribbon meatloaf, which is from section H, entertaining on a shoestring, card 22. I feel like a meatloaf is just a quintessential mid-century American dish. Like when you think about like an episode of Leave It to Beaver, there's meatloaf on the dinner table, right? Like it is just so iconic as a mid-century meal. I'm shocked that we haven't made it on this channel yet, so I'm excited to make it today. This is a pretty normal meatloaf recipe, but of course Betty Crocker has a few tricks up her sleeve. So this is not just a regular meatloaf, it's a ribbon meatloaf. We are going to add a layer of cheese filling in between the two layers of meat so that when you slice the loaf, you will get a nice ribbon of cheese in the middle. I'm excited, I think it's gonna taste pretty good. So let's give it a try. All right, to make our ribbon meatloaf, I'm gonna start by making the cheese filling, which calls for 2 slices of soft bread torn into pieces. And I, of course, thought, why not use a classic? For a classic meatloaf, let's use a classic bread, Wonder Bread. So I have 2 slices here. I don't know how tearing it into small pieces is gonna like fully homogenize with the cheese in this cheese filling, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Also don't know how small to make the small pieces. I don't know if I should be using the crusts or not. We're just playing it by ear. I did make sure to shred my own cheddar cheese this time. In the past I've used pre-shredded and it hasn't homogenized correctly. You kind of still see like shreds of cheese in the final filling, and so I thought this would help us get like a real solid filling. The recipe also said we could use blue cheese or cheddar cheese. I went with cheddar. I thought that would, I don't know, just be nicer with the meatloaf. Kind of a more classic combination. I thought blue cheese might be a little extreme. Okay, now it says that we should combine our water with our egg white. And then we're gonna toss lightly with the breadcrumbs and the cheese. So I'm gonna start by putting the cheese into the breadcrumbs. Just pour this watery egg in there. Yum. Toss that around too. Okay, that's gonna be what we want. I don't know what's going on here, but that looks like something you'd put in a meatloaf. I think using Wonder Bread is the right call. You want something that really like kind of melts on contact into the cheese. Huh, okay, fascinating. It really has combined nicely. Did you think that was gonna happen? I didn't think it was gonna happen. Okay, set this aside, make our meatloaf. All right, I'm ready to touch some meat. But first, we have 3 more slices of Wonder Bread that I've torn into small pieces, and we're gonna add to that a cup of milk, I guess just to start to break down the bread a little bit. Ooh, the way it kind of shrinks when it absorbs is suspicious to me. Wow, it's lost all it's lost all bread consistency. Just immediately starts disintegrating into mush. You love to see it. How wonderful. Now we have a pound of beef and a ½ pound of pork, and I'm gonna add the remaining ingredients and then we're just gonna mix it together. So I'm adding an egg yolk, a ¼ cup of minced onion, a tablespoon of Worcestershire. I got a whole bunch of spices. I got salt, pepper, dry mustard, sage, celery salt, and garlic salt. It's a lot of salts. It's a lot of salts. But I guess it's a lot of meat, so we want it to be flavorful. And then finally, our bread and milk. Yummy. All right, let's get in there and mix it. I feel like the reason that meatloaf is so kind of enduring and popular during the mid-century is because it was, you know, a way to stretch meat during, you know, the Great Depression and then World War II when we had rationing. You know, people weren't really making things out of hamburger until the like industrialization of meat production, when there ended up being like scraps of meat. You know, like your everyday butcher knows how to use every part of the animal, but when you start using, you know, machinery to manufacture meat, you get a lot more like scrap pieces, and that's when they started selling kind of ground pork and ground beef and things like that. And that's when you started to see things in American cooking like meatballs and hamburgers and meatloaf. And then to be able to like stretch the meat further during the Great Depression and during World War II, you know, recipes called for using a lot of bread or cereal to kind of make less meat appear to be more meat, like we have here. Okay, so now I have my greased loaf pan. We're gonna put half of our meat mixture in. So I guess I'm gonna just eyeball that. There you go. It says to pat it in. Then we're gonna cover it with the cheese filling. Now we're gonna put the second half of the meatloaf on top. Is this one of the weirder, grosser things I've done on this channel? Probably. There we go. This is gonna go in the oven at 350 for an hour and a half, and then we'll flip it out and give it a taste. Okay, as we're talking about rationing during World War II and like stretching meat further, I remembered that I have a new cookbook in my collection to share with you. So if you didn't know, during World War II, the US government had Americans rationing how they were using food in their households to make all food kind of last longer. And so they enlisted the Betty Crocker team to come up with a cookbook called Your Share, which details how to kind of make the most out of the food you have and not waste food. And so, of course, the first section in here is called Stretching Meat, and there's a recipe for meatloaf that's very similar to this recipe. But it also has tons of other kind of tips and tricks for how to make the most of your meals. It's not just meat, it also talks about, you know, how to make the most of your eggs, your flour, your sugar, your butter, vegetables, how to grow vegetables. It's just really interesting to see kind of all of these ideas that Betty Crocker's team was able to provide to help women who are in the kitchen during this really difficult time make the most with the food that they had. And what I love about it is it like kind of has a bit of a sense of humor to it. I don't know, like some of the illustrations are just really sweet, and there's a lot of kind of like wartime puns, I guess. It's just really fun and interesting. I love it. Call vegetables into service. They must pass inspection. When they are inducted, prepare for combat. Prevent mass execution of vitamins and killing of flavor. Submarine attacks. Sink the minerals and vitamins. Cook in the smallest possible amount of water. Air raids, fatal to vitamin C. Cook tightly covered to avoid exposure to air. Don't stir in air. Continuous fire, destroys vitamins. Have water boiling, salted. Bring vegetables to boil quickly. Turn down the heat and simmer. Commando tactics. To help your country save every bit of fat that comes into your kitchen. How to extend butter, how to save shortening, how to stretch the milk supply, how to make cheese go further. Fascinating, so fascinating. I love having this in my collection. How did a hot air balloon inspire the bread of the future? Wonder no more, because today we're digging into the history of Wonder Bread. Bread, of course, has been a staple of our diet for centuries, and until the Industrial Revolution, it was something that was made daily at home, a chore that usually fell to the women of the household. It was in 1921 when the Taggart Baking Company began selling the loaf of the future. Inspired by the sense of wonder that owner Elmer Klein felt when witnessing hundreds of hot air balloons in the air, he decided to make Wonder Bread, a pristine white loaf of bread with an unnaturally vibrant logo. This product represented the new America. It was cleanly manufactured in a white-tiled room, untouched by human hands. He wanted to drum up excitement for this new product, so he took out advertisements in local newspapers that just read "Wonder" and asked thought-provoking questions in large type without mentioning any product. So when the loaves finally landed on market shelves, shoppers were abuzz with the promise of tomorrow. and the promise of less baking to do at home. Wonder Bread was even featured at the 1939 World's Fair in the futuristic food zone. During the Great Depression, Wonder Bread was one of the first bread loaves to be manufactured pre-sliced, which further increased bread consumption. Because now customers could easily reach for a slice to make a snack or lunch or as a side with family dinner. While the whiteness of Wonder Bread felt cleaner to eat, it certainly wasn't healthier. To make white flour requires the removal of the outer bran, which is where most of the nutrients live. And as World War II loomed, the American government was concerned about the citizens' health, because we needed healthy fighters, of course, especially with diseases caused by vitamin deficiency. So corporations were asked to fortify their products with vitamins. And soon Wonder Bread touted their recipe, including 8 vital nutrients. It's kind of silly that they had to enrich bread with nutrients that they had stripped out themselves to control the appearance, but no matter, it worked, and Americans did become healthier, and Wonder Bread and other sliced white breads became an American icon. So the meatloaf is out of the oven. It has kind of shrunk considerably in the pan, which I find to be interesting. And it lost a lot of grease, which I feel like I've had this problem before. I don't buy lean enough ground beef and a lot of grease comes out. So I drained it and now we're gonna try to flip it onto our serving dish. Ooh. Okay. Ta-da! Okay, you can see the ribbon. The ribbon is visible, clearly. Whoa, okay. So I'm gonna just kind of scoot it to the center here. That's a meatloaf. Hey, that's a meatloaf. Wow, fascinating. Okay, I have some parsley, and I think I'm just gonna I wanted to just decorate it a little bit. So I might just like tuck a few things of parsley around. Okay, should we slice it? All right, I'm excited to see this ribbon. So much is kind of gooping out the side. I'm almost concerned. Will there even be a ribbon? My other concern is that it's starting to kind of like, there's cracks forming. We have to act fast. Okay, I'm just gonna take a slice. Okay. The cheese layer was so much easier to cut through than the meat layer. Fascinating. Okay. Why is the plate so far away? Ooh. Cute! I mean, there's more than a ribbon. It's like 33%. Wow, okay. Let's have a taste. I think I'm gonna have to taste, you know, like kind of a cross section of meat. The cheese layer got so fluffy. It's all the bread in there. Okay. Mmm. Whoa, the meatloaf is perfectly tender. It's very flavorful. The onion, the Worcestershire, the spices, like the mustard is really coming through. The cheese layer is just like a fluffier texture. I'm not getting a lot of cheese in it, but let me just try the cheese layer by itself. It's giving like frittata quiche kind of vibe. The egg white and the bread really kind of like puffed up the cheese in an interesting way. I made that cheese souffle recently. I feel like it's giving similar vibes to the cheese souffle. Delicious. I think the meatloaf recipe by itself without the ribbon of cheese would be delicious, but with it, it just adds a kind of extra texture, extra flavor, extra fun. Totally worth it. How fun. Okay, ribbon meatloaf. I'm very impressed. This is great. I haven't had meatloaf in so long. And the way that my parents made meatloaf growing up was just a different vibe. They put like kind of a ketchup barbecue sauce kind of mixture on top. So it just tasted different than this tastes. This is like subtle and mellow, which is how Betty describes it on the card, beautifully mellow in flavor. And that's true, that's accurate. There's like a lot of flavor going on, but it all works really well in concert with one another. And like the overall impression is just like cozy, warm, filling, comforting. I think that the like cheese layer in the middle is really fun. It's just like fluffy and interesting, and you get that two different textures, and it's more presentable. This is from the entertaining on a shoestring section, so I do think that you could kind of have a dinner party and give this out and people would be impressed with it. And it came together pretty fast and easy, so I think it's a win. I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 red spoons. Back in the box. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see another cheese-filled meat dinner, go ahead and watch Giant Burger next. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you aren't already, and until next time, happy homemaking.